On April 2nd, 2025, Trump declared Liberation Day, describing the announcement as one of the most important days in American history. And, in his own words, our declaration of economic independence. The immediate effect of this American economic independence is that all the financial markets across the globe witness a bloodbath, to say the least. Well, what else can you expect when the US, being the largest economy in the world, decides it no longer wants to play by the rules it once wrote itself? What happens when the dollar, the world's only reserve currency, is no longer as untouchable as it once was? Hello and welcome to Global Public Discourse. In today's segment, we decode one of the most boldest and most controversial economic strategies of our time, and that is Trump's tariff policy. We will not try to tell you as to what effects it will bring in the economic and political world. For example, global recession or a chaotic political divide amongst nation states of joining either the US or the Chinese camp, something like that. No, we won't do that here. So we will discuss something much more fundamental and much more thought-provoking related to this very controversial economic policy. We will tell you as to why tariffs are being used as tools, and also why weakening the dollar is the end plan. We'll answer these questions by connecting the dots between a few such economic policies adopted in the past by the US government, for example, the Smoot-Hawley Act in 1930, the Plaza Accord of 1985, and the present-day MarALagoAccord. So here is the billion-dollar question, folks. Is Trump repeating history or rewriting it? Is it a calculated currency and trade reset modeled after one of America's most successful financial maneuvers? Now, allow me to urge something important here, and that is, if you like my work, then please do consider subscribing to our channel. In fact, it encourages me to work harder. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started. The ghost of Smoot-Hawley when tariffs backfired. In 1930, the US was reeling from the Wall Street crash of 1929, with soaring unemployment, collapsing banks, and plummeting farm prices. In response to growing economic desperation, two American lawmakers, Smoot and Hawley, believed they could save US jobs by raising tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. Their goal was to protect American farmers and manufacturers, and also, indeed, to create jobs for locals, something what Trump is trying to do today. So, Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act despite a huge criticism from the economists of that time, and that is what happened next. The US exports collapsed by 61% in between 1930 to 1933. Other countries retaliated. Europe hit back with its own tariffs. Global trade shrank by 2/3. In fact, the global economy plunged deeper into depression. So the Smoot-Hawley Act didn't protect American jobs, it in fact destroyed them. Even President Hoover, who signed it, later admitted it worsened the crisis. And that's the reason the next president, Roosevelt, in 1933, to correct this economic fallout, promoted free trade. So here's the question, folks. Why would Trump 90 years later replay this same dangerous game? So that brings us to the second part. And the question is this, that why is President Trump doing something which backfired in the past? Well, this time they call it MarALagoAccord. Although that is still not official, but this economic policy has been shaped up by Trump's inner circle during the post-presidency years. Trump's team revived tariffs not to repeat Smoot-Hawley's mistake, but to use them strategically as leverage, not isolation. Unlike 1930, the MarALagoAccord is not about walling off the US economy, but it is about rebalancing trade, reshoring manufacturing, and weakening the dollar to boost exports. So what's different? Unlike the Smoot-Hawley, this plan is coordinated with currency moves like the 1985 Plaza Accord, targeted at specific trade imbalances, especially with China and Germany, and paired with domestic incentives and like tax breaks and infrastructure subsidies to attract manufacturers back home. So while tariffs may look the same on paper, the strategy behind them is far more nuanced and globally aware this time around. So the MarALagoAccord has got basically two objectives. Goal 1, rebuild American manufacturing, bring back crucial industries, especially semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and green tech, to reduce reliance on China, in fact, and other foreign supplies. The idea is to build American industrial strength and secure supply chains. And the goal number 2 is to reduce the trade deficits. America buys far more than it sells. As we all know, in 2023, the US trade deficit was over $773 billion. Tariffs are to be used in order to, as tool to close that very gap, and that will lead to discouraging imports and encouraging more domestic production and consumption. But here is the third piece, which is less talked about but much more powerful, and that is the idea of deliberately weaken the US dollar. Why? Let's connect the dots. That brings us to the part 3, which is dollar dominance, the Plaza Accord flashback. In 1985, the world faced a similar problem, but not with China, but with Japan at that time. The Japanese yen was too weak and the US dollar was too strong. Hence, American products were too expensive globally. Imports were flooding in and exports were drying up. So 5 countries, namely US, France, Germany, Japan, and the UK, signed the Plaza Accord. They agreed to devalue the dollar, especially against the yen and Deutsche Mark. The result? The US dollar fell by over 50% in just 2 years. Japanese exports slowed, and American industry got breathing space. According to a professor of economics at US Berkeley, it was a controlled demolition of the dollar's value for strategic gain. The Trump team believes it can do something similar today without a formal accord. By using tariffs as pressure tactic, the dollar may weaken as global demand shifts away. Now let's discuss the part 4, which is will this really work in today's scenario? Let's talk realism now. The world today is not what it used to be in 1985 or in 1930. The US economy is much more tied to global supply chain. American companies depend on imports not just for financial goods only, but for components, semiconductors, energy, and raw materials. So if tariffs raise prices, US companies suffer and the consumers suffer too. So inflation rises. And here is another kicker. Tariffs alone won't bring back factories. Labor in the US is much more expensive. As we all know, many manufacturing jobs are now done by robots. So yes, weakening the dollar may help make US exports cheaper, but unless the US builds up its industrial capacity and skilled labor force at the same time, the benefits won't last. In Paul Krugman's words himself, tariffs may win you votes, but they rarely win you prosperity. So the global fallout, will the world follow America again? That is the question. Here's where the stakes are high. In fact, America has long been the anchor of the global economy. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. If tariffs and currency manipulations shake trust in the US, the world may move away from the dollar already. Okay, so China and Russia are trading in yuan at the moment. India and UAE are trading in rupee and dirham. Brazil and the EU are exploring digital currencies for trade. The weaponization of dollar through sanctions, tariffs, and financial controls has created what some analysts call de-dollarization by design. And the US risks overplaying its hand. If everyone finds a reason to ditch the dollar, you don't remain the house everyone wants to live in, as per Johan Forger, former Credit Suisse strategist. Now, it brings us to the closing thoughts of this very conversation, which is this: that is Trump repeating the Smoot-Hawley disaster or executing a new version of Plaza Accord? That is the question of our time. And here is what we know so far. Trump tariffs in the past led to depression. Dollar devaluation in the past led to temporary relief. But the world has changed. Today's trade wars risk fragmenting the global financial system. And if this system fails, America could face inflation, higher debt costs, and loss of global leadership. If it works, the US might reclaim some industrial strength, but at the cost of trust. So we leave you tonight with these questions. Can the US truly rebuild itself through tariffs and currency warfare? Will the world still trust the dollar or seek a new anchor? Can that new anchor be filled by some BRICS nations' currency? So let's know what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, stay curious. Bye-bye.